Welcome back to the Wacky, Wonderful, Wise Works podcast, all you guys, gals, geeks, and goofballs. We're going to be talking about Harry Potter. It's going to be a big podcast of Harry Potter. The Harry Potter HBO series is coming out, and there's movement. There's movement in this show, and so there's all kinds of questions we have about it. We're going to be deep diving, exploring so many aspects, and also like why this show might shatter the Hollywood system. And that's something that I'm thinking. It has potential to do one way or the other. So we're going to get into all that. How you doing?
I'm good. Life is good. I wasn't expecting that tee-up question. We just went through it'll be a week ago for the viewers on YouTube, but we just went through the hurricane, the storm.
Right. Yeah, the hurricane, Helena. Is that what it
something
was
like that. Something like that.
And we're in Georgia, so we're not the Florida people, right? That got hit with all that flooding, and it's crazy. If 4 months ago, I was that Florida person.
You would have had to leave Florida.
I would have been. I don't think I'd be underwater, but I think there'd be a lot of places around me that's underwater.
Yeah, you'd be like Florida. Leaving. You'd be like, I got to get out of the state real quick. Let's get out of the state.
But we lost power for about 6 hours, and so it came right over top of us. But it wasn't. It was already died down a lot. There was some winds. There was some flooding. There's a lot of rain that dumped, but where I'm at is fine. So
good.
Where you're at is fine, I'm assuming too, right?
Yeah, we're good today. There was a little bit of, when you drive, a lot of puddles. You gotta dodge on the road, but not like flooding, just puddles that will make you hydroplane on the road.
What's crazy is there's a lot of bad flooding even north of us, where it passed us and then it got worse. So up in like the mountains in North Carolina and stuff. So it's pretty nuts. I hope.
Look at us, old men talking about the weather. We're a bunch of old men talking about the weather.
It's probably the hurricane of this year. I'm hoping it's like the biggest problem hurricane of this year. And I don't think we've had one that's hit quite as hard since that one out in Texas. You remember that one that hit Texas super hard?
Yeah.
A few years back. And so this is kind of like a big one, for some families and some properties in some areas, it's pretty devastating. So, yeah, it was a big one, and it went right over top of us here in the Atlanta area.
Yeah, we live here in Atlanta.
We do. Don't give any specifics. But let's jump into Harry Potter, because this is a fun topic. This is something I want to get into. Oh, I forgot to get rid of the slate slide. It's just been sitting there the whole time. All right. I want to get into Harry Potter and talk a little bit. Okay, so like when I say the statement, I guess you might say, this Harry Potter HBO series might shatter or cause a ruckus in the Hollywood system. Would you agree with that? And if so, what are some areas that you think it might cause that ruckus?
No, I don't think ruckus. I think everybody likes Harry Potter. Everybody, we didn't as much because we were part of that Christian community that didn't read the books, but as a kid, people were reading these books, and so they're beloved by people. A lot of people grew up with these movies, books, and stuff. And so when you hear, they might be making a show off of it, your ears perk up a little bit, and you're excited a little bit, even if Hollywood right now is doing remakes and they're not that great. I think that might be where people are a little bit scared, is these remakes. But other than that, I think people's ears are perked up and they're like, let's just peek. Let's wait and see, because I think the average ordinary person, they like some of these, Wednesday shows and things like
Wednesday,
that
right.
that are coming out. So maybe
Well,
it'll be good. I mean, we have some good shows out there.
yeah, this is why I think it probably will shatter in some ways Hollywood currently, is because the way that Game of Thrones shattered. So this is an HBO show that's going to be making this. HBO is known for having, let's be honest, some real good stuff. You know what I mean?
Okay.
That they make higher quality shows. Here's the thing, like what I think it might shatter. It could go one way or the other. It could be a complete failure. All right. And the fans don't like it. It was a ton of money that was spent. It was a ton of time. Again, this show's not coming out to 2026, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a
They're
while.
probably going to start filming in April of 2025.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in the middle of casting everybody, including the three kids, Hermione, Potter, and Ron, right? And so it could be a complete failure, and it could just fall completely on its face, and it's going to be a very big public humiliation, not only for HBO, but it's going to have ripple effects across Hollywood because of the size of this IP. Mm-hmm. On the other side, it could be absolutely incredible, all right?
Yeah.
It could be so much better than the films, the Harry Potter films. A lot of people are saying that the films are lacking seriously in quality compared to the book. And they keep saying, now I wouldn't trust this from anybody, but the creators or the people at HBO keep saying they are doing a faithful adaptation of the books. Now, we heard that from Amazon Prime. I don't trust them when they say that. We've heard that from Disney. I don't trust them when they say that, right? But when HBO says it, I'm thinking they might be telling the truth, right?
It might be. HBO has a good track record. So
it has a really good track record. And so I actually have a thing where we'll later go through some of that track record. But the thing is, I think it's going to have an impact one way or the other. And I think everyone's either going to want to be it. Disney is going to be like, where's our Harry Potter big success? We haven't had one in forever. You know what I mean? We own Star Wars and Marvel, and we can't seem to get our stuff enjoyed. But this is going to be a big show, and so that's why we're going to go through a lot of arguments, both one way or the other, about why this is going to be a very consequential series that's made, right? One way or the other. Now, I do want to just point out, not you guys, I'm used to see.
Yeah, we're missing Wyatt.
With us. Did you hear the news about Maggie Smith?
Yes, I did. Yes.
It's pretty sad.
It's definitely sad. Professor McGonagall, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely sad, but she's been old for a while, and so she had a long life. I don't want to downplay that, but she had a full life, and so we'll say that. But the things I'm seeing that are more sad to me than the Harry Potter stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I know she was huge in Harry Potter, and so that's what people are kind of recognizing her as. But the thing, I saw a meme where it's Robin Williams.
I saw that too.
And Robin Williams says something like, welcome, Wendy dear. And she looks up and in heaven, and she's like, who's this boy? Like from Hook. And it actually kind of, it pulled out my trug strings a little bit. I'm like, that's kind of sad. She's joining Robin Williams, although I don't know her personally if she went upstairs or downstairs, but
oh dang, upstairs or downstairs, dang it, you so.
I mean, I don't know her personally,
man.
So I don't know, but
look, she always, at least in the Hollywood system as an actor, and her reputation that preceded her through her career, she seems like a lovely lady.
Yeah,
I always enjoyed her on screen. She had a great run. 89 years old.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I think Downton Abbey, couple iconic roles like in Hook, but primarily, I mean, Harry Potter was so big, most people know her from Harry Potter, right?
Yes,
and so that's it's a big deal, and I think it's pretty sad to hear that she's passed.
Yeah,
but
it's kind of interesting that you picked this Harry Potter episode right this week. That this happened this week. That's crazy. Well,
yeah, it just happened
last week for you guys.
Right. It just happened, so it was unplanned. But I wanted to make sure I mention her, just because of the nature of their topic, right? Harry Potter. Mm-hmm. So, but also there's a couple things that's been happening around the Harry Potter film or the series. They're already getting in lawsuits and stuff. There's like this. Ooh. There's this stuff that's like, what is it? Sky and Comcast. I've never heard of them. I think they have to do something with like British TV or something. Okay. And they have some kind of contract that's tied to Warner Brothers in some capacity. And it ends in like 2025. And Warner Brothers is like not renewing it or something. Mm-hmm. And so they're like suing Warner Brothers over them wanting to be, they want a slice of the pie when the show comes out is what's happening. You know what I mean? And so they're already in lawsuits about saying this contract needs to be renewed. It's not right that it's not being renewed. And people at Warner Brothers are like, we don't need you. We're the ones who owns the rights for this. Yeah. So yeah, they're already in lawsuits. So there's already infighting over what is going to be the result of this story. And if you guys haven't, go ahead.
Kind of interesting that you bring that up. Would you consider Harry Potter a British thing or an American thing?
It's 100% a British thing. 100%. 150%. It's a British thing. J.K. Rowling is British. It takes place in Europe. It takes place in the British world, right? Okay. And it's all the characters are Brits. Everything about this is British. And the thing is, I heard that the show is going to be some in the UK and some in the States, where I believe the movies were all filmed. I think they were all filmed in the States.
Yeah.
I think they were all filmed in the States. Too. And there was a bit of a controversy at the top because it was American studios like Warner Brothers who were doing it. But I heard that this is going to be a mix, this show. And obviously, I think for casting, you have to cast Brits. You know what I mean? Like, you have to cast Brits because...
I don't know. Daniel Radcliffe is not British.
Yes, he is.
No, I thought he... No.
Yes, he is.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Daniel Radcliffe is British. Everybody is British that was in the Harry Potter. I think everybody. Maybe there's some side characters that aren't, but almost
he's an English actor. He's credited as an English actor. Yes.
Yes. If they were in Harry Potter, just assume they're Brits.
Okay. Sure. But past this, what was your point? We kind of took a detour there.
Well, I was just gonna say that there's articles and everything you can find online. It's so early. But there's so much hype around this already, right?
Oh yeah,
because this is Harry Potter, and it's such a big deal that people are already writing. This is a whole article about everything we know. They're being very open about the process of this show, and they also announced already who. You know how a few months ago we talked about this and we said, hey, this is like the people they're looking at as potential showrunners. You remember how we kind of went through that list? You remember that?
Yep.
They've confirmed who that's going to be now. So they went through those, and we're going to talk about that in this episode. We're going to take a look at the people they chose.
Fine. I will say there's hype around this, even though it's still 2 years till we get anything. But if you think about it, it will be 16 years once this comes out in 2026. Since the last movie came out. So it's not been recent. It's not like, 16 years in the grand scope of things isn't really that long, but that's long for them to do something new and with this universe. I think it's okay. It's been long enough. It's been over 10 years. And so it's been a while.
Oh, they've definitely given the IP time to cook. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've definitely let it kind of simmer. And the crazy thing is, man, the Harry Potter movies have not dropped off, right?
Not really.
They haven't. They are still. There's a new surge. They came on Netflix recently. There's a new surge where
Netflix or Max? I thought they were on Max.
well, they've been on Max for a long time
Yes.
because Max is a subsidiary of Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers owns the
Mhm.
rights to the show. So they've been on Max, but I'm pretty sure that Netflix, either in the UK or here in America, I'm not sure which one, Netflix has a limited contract on Harry Potter. I could be wrong. It could have been something that they had like a year ago and they've already canceled it. I'm not sure.
Unlike the Lord of the Rings cast that didn't really see any piece of the pie because even though they had residuals, a lot of them didn't, and they claimed, the studio was claiming, oh, we didn't get paid as much as you think, and we spent so much money on the film that they don't get as much residuals as you think. I would love to have a residual for Harry Potter.
Yeah.
I would love to get those residual checks. Be like Daniel Radcliffe. Or
here's the strange thing though about streaming, right? Because this is going to be a streaming show series, right?
Mhm.
And so the customer base is merch, right? So merch will be a big thing,
Mhm.
especially for Harry Potter. But on top of that,
merch.
it's like they don't have, it's not a theatrical release.
Yeah, but
They're not selling hard copy. They might sell hard copies, but that's not a big market anymore with like DVDs and Blu-rays. So the main income is, does it bring in new subscribers, and does it keep current ones, right? That's the main income for this.
I agree with what you're saying, because there's definitely streaming it rather than getting a DVD copy is a lot different now. When the movies came out, you bought DVDs. But let's go back to the merch thing. Let's look at Lord of the Rings compared to this. Yes, Lord of the Rings has merch. They've got like swords and things that you can buy from it.
A lot of t-shirts, man.
A lot of t-shirts, but it's not, I have to argue that the merch from Lord of the Rings, you don't usually just like buy a Hobbit outfit. A lot of people, you don't see that as much.
Well, hold on.
How many wizard costumes do you see every Halloween, every Harry Potter event? Like, there's wands, there's cloaks, there's
the merch
Harry
is already
Potter
strong.
glasses. The merch and the costumes, the cosplay for Harry Potter is so huge compared to Lord of the Rings.
Now,
Lord of the Rings
think about this
stuff. I mean, just think about all the socks people have been buying because of Dobby, and I mean,
right? Okay, but think about this also. You're comparing it to Lord of the Rings. What you should be comparing it is to like Game of Thrones, because that's also an HBO show, right? Not a movie franchise.
What?
So HBO.
Okay. No, I'll compare it to like Star Wars maybe, because they have movies and they have shows based off that. I don't think you can compare Game of Thrones because there's only a show for it. I know it's a
there's books. There's books.
Yes, but there's no movies for Game of Thrones. There's no movies. There's books and there's show. There's no book, movie, show type thing.
Okay. But I'm just saying, like, even Game of Thrones had crazy merch, right? And that was a show. So this, being the IP that it is, it already has wild merch. It's going to ramp up merch again. We're going to get a new wave, a new tsunami of merch that's going to be sold. And what's crazy is this show is supposed to be over a course of 10 years, man. So
now, that's crazy.
This is what I'm saying. It's going to shake up Hollywood. This show is going to shake it up.
To 10 years already. Commit to like 4. And then we'll reassess after that. But 10, shoo.
All right. I'm not going to read through this Deadline article just because I kind of have already read through it like twice. So I know the information here. But we're going to talk through a few topics. It's going to I'll be referencing stuff that I might say matter of fact I've read in this article. So just so you're aware, okay? This is all like updates about stuff that we know. So I won't stay on this forever. I will just say things and just understand I've done a good bit of research. But I did want to, before we get into more points on this, we're going to talk about we're gonna kind of talk about, is there a potential for HBO to ruin Harry Potter? Or, you know, we're going to go through some of those details. But before we do that, thank you, Karina, for being a Patreon supporter. Thank you so much. Karina supports us on Patreon. We also have memberships, YouTube memberships. You go to the channel, you hit join here on YouTube, and you get the same stuff. So whether you prefer to use Patreon or whether you prefer to use memberships, you can support us. It's only $3.99 a month. We have an exclusive pre-show podcast that we put out every time we record a podcast that you get exclusively forever. And then there's also, you get the podcast early, and then also other features that we drop here and there about that are exclusive to our memberships and patrons. So if you want to support us and be a part of the conversation, you also get personalized shout outs in the podcast, and you get your name in the credits of not just every podcast, but every video that's out on the YouTube channel, on the Wiseworks Studio channel. So it's definitely a cool thing to support us. You get your name, you get recognition, you get stuff early and exclusively. So thank you, Karina, for being a patron. We really appreciate it. Is HBO about to ruin Harry Potter? That's the question, right?
So I have a thought back in my head kind of based off what we were talking about, and I would like to bring it up. Maybe I should wait, but I'm just going to say one thing, and then we can kind of go back to HBO or Max. Specifically talking about them as an actor, because I'm thinking from an actor's perspective. If I know that it's going to be 10 years, I'm thinking about all these actors like Millie Bobby Brown right now, that she's done with Stranger Things, but they want her to come back for a final season. And she's like, I did this when I was a kid, and I want to be in bigger movies. I want to be in different things now. Do you want to, as an actor, commit to 10 years of filming something where you're stuck? You can go and film other movies, but like you're stuck for 10
You're committed.
years. Unless you're someone like who's the guy that Alfred from Michael Caine.
Caine, yes.
Unless you're Michael Caine, who has like 50 years in the industry as an actor or longer, then you're almost, that's your life as an actor, is like 10 years. So are you going to be able to film this? And yes, you will get a lot of recognition from it, but also, are you wanting to not have the opportunity to work on with Christopher Nolan, with Steven Spielberg or something like that, because you're committing to this show?
Okay, this is what I would say. It depends on the show, man. So Game of Thrones, I would say 100%. It's literally on the list for like top 5 TV shows of all time, only beat by shows like I Love Lucy and like some of those older ones. You know what I mean? But so Game of Thrones is truly at the top. And that commitment not only gives you the exposure, the name recognition, it gets you, look, you want to talk about residuals? You want to talk about not only
you'll be set
recognition, you're going to be set up. And the thing is, this series, if it goes really well, it is going to set up these kids. They don't have to act anymore if they don't want to, or they can probably go and get a lot of other roles after this 10 years. But
I'm thinking of like let's think of some of these dads. We've talked about this recently. These dads in Hollywood that are starting to have kids, and so they're acting and voicing characters in younger kids' movies and shows now, like Chris Pratt. He was in Parks and Rec for these years, but it wasn't 10 years. It was what? I think
it was like 6,
5 or 6,
6 or 7.
He had the opportunity to be part of Parks and Rec, and when you get stuck on a show like that, you do have a lot of people that recognize you for that show, but there's also like kids didn't watch Parks and Rec because it was made for a specific audience group. And then now that Chris is done, he can do Garfield and Mario, and then kids will recognize him from Garfield and Mario and then be like, oh yeah, he also was in Parks and Rec. But if you're only in Parks and Rec, yes, you do get recognized by a lot of people, but it's a specific group of people that are watching this show. It's not like kids, adults. It's not everybody. It's kind of this one age range. Now, Harry Potter, let's kind of, I want to go back to HBO or Max. We can kind of go back to the topic, but because of the type of thing and the audience that loves this series, you will get an older audience with a younger audience because it is going to be kids. But the older audience that are watching it fell in love with the books and the movies when they were coming out in the early 2000s. And so you will get a larger group of people as a fan base, but you don't know. But going
back, well, you're jumping ahead a little bit on me because we are gonna talk through all of this.
So back to Max. What do you think Max is doing with it?
All right, so it will HBO potentially ruin or have the might be ruining Harry Potter. I think there's a couple things we have to look at. All right, to give an analysis of what are the factors that could either make or break something, right? Yeah. We talked about how Netflix is definitely about to ruin the Narnia shows in film form, right?
Probably.
We discussed it. I think it's matter of fact they're about to ruin it. So the idea is HBO going to potentially ruin Harry Potter? Well, let's take a look at what they've given us as things to gauge this. Okay. So first off, they have announced who's going to be kind of like the executive producer, the showrunners for this. They went through kind of like a trial period or a pitching period with a handful of people to say like, hey, what is your vision of the books? Like, how would you steer this story? In what direction? Right. And they liked this person. So I want to share their IMDb. So Francesca Gardner is going to be the executive producer of the show, right? Now, it's not to say that somewhere down the line she decides to cut ties with and they have to replace her as the showrunner, especially over the course of 10 years, but they chose her. Now, we can take a look at what she's done. So most recently, she's most known for Succession, which was a very well-written show on HBO. However, it was very adult. So the question is, how is this? I have faith in her ability to tell and produce a well-told story, but I haven't seen a lot of work that she's done in the line of kind of like can be for kids, teens, and also adults who are reminiscing, right?
I would think this is going to be a teen show, young adults teen show, which a lot of people like. If you talk to 40% of all adults and you recommend a really good book that is considered a teen fiction book, most like 40% of adults, if not higher, probably like 60, are going to be like, yeah, that's awesome. I love reading teen novel type books because yes, you can still it can be not childish, but still be adult enough to be like, this is fun and I can enjoy it as an adult. So I think that has to be where they have to take it.
It's possible, but also it with seeing like what she's done. So you got His Dark Materials, Succession. You go down to, she was also a writer for His Dark Materials. This is a lady who's written for adult enjoyment. You know what I mean? For some of these shows and produced for some of these shows.
I don't like your saying adult enjoyment because that sounds
adult enjoyment. It's not adult films, but it
sounds like you're saying adult films.
Okay, I'm talking about a mature audience, right?
Yes.
So it could very well be possible that they said, hey, we want to make sure that the built-in fan base who are now in their 20s and 30s for sure, you know what I mean? Their late 20s and 30s, that they are going to be happy with this show.
Yeah.
But we have to nerf it a little bit so kids and a new generation can also find it.
Just don't over nerf it. Don't throw it in the microwave too long so it becomes so nuked that it's boring for the adults.
All right. So with her, I don't see a red flag. I see a little bit of lack of experience, but the stuff that I have seen that she's done, I think are well-told stories. Yeah. I think Succession is really good. It's won a ton of awards with good reason. I've seen the show. I don't see a red flag with her. All right. I think that potentially could be a good choice.
But you said there was more than one person.
Yes. Okay. So they also have picked someone who's going to be a director for probably a lot of the show, but at least a majority of the first season's episodes, as well as an executive producer. So he's going to be directing a lot of stuff. He's directed stuff like Shameless. Again, very adult, right?
But
Game of Thrones.
Good writing.
Good writing. Game of Thrones. Very adult.
Character
good writing.
Development.
Yes. Yeah. Shameless, Game of Thrones, and Succession. Again, HBO stuff. You know what I mean? Well, Shameless was Showtime, but they're very similar to HBO. So we're talking about a guy who's directed for 3 really well-written, well-characterized shows, right? He's directed for this.
I feel like that's what we focus on probably most on this channel, or even the shows that we enjoy, is the ones that build the characters, give them character development, and help us to understand them, give them motivation. I personally have raved over The Bear, not because it is the best show in the world, which it is pretty good, but because of the character development with it. It is, he also did The Menu.
Yeah, it seems like he worked on The Menu in some capacity.
The Menu.
What was it? I don't know if he directed it. So director, previous. I don't see oh, there it is. The Menu. So yeah, he was the director of The Menu, which The Menu was a weird story, but it was also characterized really well. Like the characters really stood out, and it was told in an interesting way. So, again, no red flags so far.
Until the next director, Leslie Headland.
No.
That would make me laugh so hard if you just had her pulled up and you switched to her to be like, and the next you switch her. I'm just kidding.
No. There's actually, I actually don't. Fortunately, I don't see that kind of nonsense happening at HBO. You know what I mean? In fact, actually, they tend to pick people that are kind of unknown or kind of like don't make big splashes. But are really good storytellers. That's what I've noticed from HBO. And so so right now, okay, so that I don't see any issue with who they've selected to be kind of the front runners for the show, the creation, the leaders of the creation of this show. So then the other thing we have to take a look at is the reputation of the studio, right? So I did pull up this. It's Rotten Tomatoes, kind of like all of the HBO shows and their scores. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So there's a ton in here that I either haven't heard of or have heard of but haven't watched. But there's also stuff in here that I've seen. So first off, HBO as a studio has a ton of 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Okay.
And a lot of these I haven't even heard of. You know what I mean?
Yep.
My wife watched Insecure. Again, it's kind of a raunchy show, but it's, again, really good characterization. Band of Brothers, that's a beloved one. You got The Last of Us. Again, I didn't like The Last of Us, but a lot of people did. And I wouldn't say the writing was bad. No. I just think it was boring for what it was supposed to be. It didn't feel like an apocalypse show. But there's a lot of stuff. A lot of people liked this one. What is it? Mary of Easttown? Mare of Easttown? Chernobyl. That was crazy good and very dark and intense at the same time. Succession got a lot of love. Veep, Flight of the Conchords. Yeah, that was like a one thing they did a long time ago. Veep, incredibly written show. If you've ever seen Veep, hilarious. There's so much. House of the Dragon, Boardwalk Empire. I watched the majority of the first season of this. That it's really well written show. Sopranos. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And I actually found this super interesting. I was like, so we're still in the 90s. You know what I mean? Like, what's the worst rated show that HBO's put out? Right?
Wait a minute. Oh, wait. Game of Thrones was
a 90.
lower than House of the Dragon.
Yeah, because Game of Thrones had that horrible ending and it got a lot of heat. Okay. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And let's also acknowledge Euphoria. A lot of people don't like it, but you can't tell me it's not engaging and well told. Like, you really can't.
I've heard so much positive things about it. The only thing
it's a horrible show.
Yeah, it's a very hard show to watch.
It's a horrible show, but they film the whole thing on film. So, and it's very dynamic. It's cinematically, it's gorgeous. And the characterization in Euphoria is out. I haven't seen it come anywhere close in another show. It's just incredible. So this made me laugh so hard. I was like, what's the worst rated show that HBO's put out on Rotten Tomatoes? And it made me laugh so hard. The worst rated show is The Time Traveler's Wife. And I loved this one. I've raved about it on this podcast but nonstop.
They left it with a cliffhanger, didn't they? And then they just didn't
because they left it for a season 2, right? And then they canceled it probably because it didn't get good ratings. But I'm like, dude,
wasn't this during COVID too when they canceled it, or could that?
It wasn't. I think it was filmed before COVID, but it came out around that time. But I loved this show. Look, I'm a big fan of Leslie Headland. Not Leslie Headland. My gosh. What is her name? Rose Leslie. I'm getting my names mixed up. Rose Leslie.
You don't like Headland?
No, I'm not
you don't
a fan
like
of
Miss
Leslie Headland. Rose Leslie. Big fan of her. And I'm just saying, also let's not forget White Lotus is on this list. There's so many good shows. So the reputation of the studio is very high. Okay.
Yeah.
I would say HBO probably has the best reputation when it comes to telling really good characterized shows. You know what I mean? So far, no red flags with the creators, no red flag with the studio who's taking it. If it was Disney Plus, it'd be a big red flag, but that's not the case, right? So the other thing I would say is, what do we see them doing right for this? So I went for this show early, what do we see them doing right? And I was looking at this article, and we talked about this in the past. I think the biggest thing they're doing right is the fact that they have J.K. Rowling very involved with this.
Yeah, I think I know we're talking about right, and I'm always like, let's talk about positive when we're talking a lot of negative, but I'm going to hit on a negative, and that kind of is the opposite of positive, if that makes sense. So the biggest thing that I don't like about Max's shows in general, across the board, consistently is...
Well, it's Max... Let's say HBO, because HBO is still a standalone thing. Max is just where they house their content.
Yeah. So they're usually really well-written shows, well-filmed, for the most part, well-paced. They don't feel slow. The characters,
except for Last of Us.
Yeah. I'm saying as a majority, I'm not saying everything exactly. And they're usually very good, and their characters have good character development and all of that. What I don't like, and Max is at fault for something like this, they always have to throw in, and I don't even know how to describe it or how to say it, but like the girl's character in Last of Us, that one, they have to throw in that the girl, the kid, lesbian. character, and it's like,
Okay.
why?
It's
Why
a
you
kid
make?
lesbian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why
The kid
the
gay.
kid? Yes, and
Yeah.
it's not even like I'm not gonna criticize like Nick Offerman's character, which I have my qualms with that, but I'm not specifically talking about like overall that they have. It's just in general, like the kid being that, and I
Mhm.
don't like that. Where
I
HBO,
don't. You're right. You're right. That with the and it's the same thing in Euphoria. I don't like exploring who are supposed to be kid characters' sexuality on screen.
yes,
I don't like exploring that when it comes to children's characters. I'm not a fan of it with adult characters either. Like I'm good with the romance, but if we're getting like super sexual and stuff, I'm not into that.
Mhm.
HBO is known for being the studio who gets into that.
Yeah,
The problem is they are also the best at characterization. You know what I
yes.
mean?
I mean, and
So it's like they have this crap mixed in with really good stuff.
and on the flip side, reality in like let's just go to a normal high school today here in
Mhm.
America. And that's probably what they're going to be kind of basing because it's going to be a lot around the school because it's a show. It's going to have more of that probably than
Yeah.
any of the, all the adventures and the extra Harry Potter things, Voldemort stuff. It's going to be have the school in there more than we saw in the movies. And so if
Right.
you go to high school today, do we have that? Yes. And are
Mhm.
they going to be able to put that in there to make it feel more well diverse? You have all the characters, yes, but just don't overdo it. Let's just say that.
Well, I'll say this. I can't be sure, but it's really hard to pin down J.K. Rowling's values. You know what I mean? Because she's been very open about how she's proud to make Dumbledore a gay man. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which she did after she wrote the books. maybe she's telling the truth and that she always thought that he was gay when she wrote the books. But from everything I've heard, it's like that was a statement made after the books were written because
Yeah.
it's never alluded to in the books. And that's another thing I would say would be a negative. Like what they need to stay away from is kind of what you said is don't explore the sexuality or sexualize kids, especially since this is a bunch of kids show, you know what I mean? And I would say the same thing is follow the book's intention where Dumbledore, the fact that he's gay doesn't play a part with him being in charge of the school. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They told some of that in the movies of Fantastic Beasts, right? But don't make that a part of his character in a big way with the show. Like just do like the movies did, not acknowledge it. You know what I mean? Because we don't want this show to be sexual in nature in any capacity. The most sexual it's getting, in my opinion, is when like Ron and Hermione have a kiss. You know what I mean? Like that's as sexual as I think it needs to get. You know, we're talking this is a show that has a lot going on. We don't need to dive into the sexual nature. And that is going to be difficult because almost every HBO show has elements of that.
Yeah, and also don't get into that too early too. I hope they don't get into that too early because like we know the story of Harry Potter. We know where the last book is going to take us. We know where the final season is going to take us. And so I hope they don't take liberties in pushing some of that stuff forward a little bit, like Hermione and Ron's character's love interest. I hope they don't push that forward in the story and books because they know that's where it's going to get and they want to build on that a little more. It doesn't happen till closer to the end. So I hope they don't.
What are you talking about pushing it forward? Are you talking about like setting it up too much?
Setting it up almost like giving Ron and Hermione being more friendly with each other in the second season or season 1 even.
Well, I don't know. I as if it's just like flirty, like young kids butterflies.
Okay,
like
yes.
That's relatable. Yes. That makes it more human, right?
Just don't give me more than that early on.
No. Look, don't sexualize the show. HBO is incredibly sexual in nature with their storytelling. We don't need to do that for Harry Potter.
Yes.
We shouldn't do that for Harry Potter. For goodness sake, stay away from that. Stay away from people's sexual identity and stay away from sexual activity for this show. Please. Please, oh, please, oh, please, let this be the one HBO show that doesn't dive into that and truly can be watched by kids. Like, truly. That's what I want. And that's what they need to stay away from. When it comes to race swapping, I could give a crap. You know what I mean? Either. Like, if they tell the story well, and there's no confirmation on what that's going to be, they might end up just going with 3 white kids and everybody else in the school is very diverse like the movies were, you know what I mean? I don't care how they do it. None of it bothers me when it comes to race stuff. I'm just saying sexual identity and sexual activity, keep that out of this show. This doesn't need to be a part of it. Definitely not. Make some young kids flirtation. Let Ron and Hermione have their kiss when they get older. Let Ron's younger sister, what's her name? The Harry love interest.
Yeah, Harry Potter. And Ginny.
Yeah, let them have their kiss when they get older and they're like seniors in high school or whatever. Like, let that be down the road when it's appropriate, but keep it light. Keep the sexual nature light. That is the one thing that can ruin the show, is if they go too hard on the sexual stuff. And when it comes out in a long time, in 2026, I'm going to remember this. I'm going to be like, I'm showing so much grace to this show. If they start dumping in sexual identity and sexual activity into the show, especially early on, I'm going to be upset. Yeah. And if they make a whole big deal out of Dumbledore being gay, or if they like say, oh, I'm a non-binary student, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to be very upset at this because that's not that. And the thing is, J.K. Rowling also, she's gotten so much heat for the whole trans controversy. And the fact that she's really involved with this, makes me think that the whole like non-binary transgender side of stuff might not be included in the show. And I think with good reason. I think that is a good thing. I think that is 100% good for a show that's supposed to be enjoyed by legacy Harry Potter fans and young kids. I think none of that needs to be in the show. We don't need the transgender representation and the non-binary representation. We don't need any of that.
Yeah. Do you have any more of the cast or crew for this, or no?
There is no crew slated yet. It's just the 2 people I showed you. They're casting the 3 kids currently. Okay. The situation is the kids need to be between the ages of 9 and 11.
Okay, so young.
By April 2025. So by this coming April, they need to be in between 9 and 11. So they can't be 9 and 11 now and 12 then. You know what I mean? So they have to be between the age of 9 and 11. That's the stipulation. Because remember, 10 years, that means this show, if it's released in 2026, that means the last season, I don't know if it's going to be a season a year, or it seems like, because there's 7 books, right? But they said we're committing to 10 years of this. So I don't know if they're saying we're going to do 7 seasons, but we're going to like, when there's a really big season, maybe down the road or something, we're going to have 2 years in between the seasons when there's like a lot of hype around the show. Kind of like Stranger Things. It's been like 2.5 years or something since season 4 came out. I don't know if they're going to take a lot of time, or if they're going to say we're filming every year and there's going to be 10 seasons of this show covering all 7 books. It's possible they do that. Either way, the kids are going to be between 19 and 21 when this show finishes, right?
Yeah.
So that's the goal. That's the goal for the actors.
That seems good, but I mean, do you realize that means we're going to be like,
I'm going to be 35. I'm going to be almost 40 when the show ends. Are you kidding me? I'm going to be 40 years old Oh my gosh.
And you're gonna have like several kids, and you're gonna be like an old grandpa, man.
I'm going to be 40 years old when this show is done.
Old grandpa, man.
40 years old.
That's crazy to think about.
10 years, I'm going to be 40. I'm
Yeah,
29 right now.
We're still going to be reviewing this. I don't know. Maybe we can.
I'm going to still be here reviewing this freaking show in 10 years.
I mean, maybe we'll get into more directing and have a chance to direct an episode too.
Nah, I'm not going to be directing this show, but I'm going to be making more stuff, but I'm going to still be doing this thing. I still want to be talking about movies and stuff. I'm going to keep doing it. But yeah, so 10 years, man. So this is so to answer the question, is HBO about to ruin Harry Potter? I say there's no red flags at this point.
No. I mean maybe some, off colored flags maybe that aren't red or white, just like a burgundy maybe that we could see, but we don't know till it gets a little bit farther in and we know cast, crew, we start seeing some videos from it, advertisements, some trailers maybe. We'll see.
I'll say this. I wouldn't trust Netflix in the same way I don't trust them to do Narnia. I wouldn't trust Disney Plus, for sure not.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trust Amazon Prime. I wouldn't Paramount Plus. They do good stuff, but it's more like indie style stuff. Honestly, it feels a little bit disconnected. I wouldn't trust any of the major studios except HBO. Yeah. Not even Warner Brothers. I'm talking about HBO. They're under Warner Brothers, but they are their own thing, owned by Warner Brothers ultimately. HBO as a studio is truly the only studio that I could be like, I can get behind this and I can feel hype about this incredible IP about to be made into potentially 10 seasons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is crazy. It's the only studio I feel I actually would look forward to this.
This is a little bit off topic, but not really. And I don't think this is true, but I saw a little thing on social media where they're like, can you imagine? I don't know if it was, can you imagine, or they offered the role to him, but I don't think he would take it, even if he was offered it, is Cillian Murphy as Voldemort. Cillian Murphy as Voldemort.
I would poop myself. I think I would poop myself.
I think he would do a fantastic job. I don't think he'll do it. He's too much like, he likes his space outside of filming. He likes his privacy, and then he'll go and film something. So I don't think he'll do it.
And I don't think he's going to commit to something for 10 years. I think he got tired of the commitment for Peaky Blinders. Even though he's coming back to do a movie with them.
Yeah, but a movie's easier to film one thing than like another whole season. But Cillian Murphy as Voldemort would be fun. That would be fun.
That would be epic. A Cillian Murphy Voldemort, my goodness. I'm really excited to see the different directions that they take with this show. That's supposed to be, as everyone keeps saying, we've talked to J.K. Rowling. We're committed to making a faithful adaptation of the books. They're saying that all of the criticism that the movies, although still loved, the movies got was the fact that the books are still so much better. If we see something that's even a bit more aligned to the books than the movies were and fulfill on it, both visually, characteristically, storytelling beats, everything, the talent that's chosen, if we find something that is superior to the movies, then we have something that's going to hit legendary status. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this might be the biggest. Okay, this actually tees up really well with the next thing. This, in my opinion, this could be as big, if not bigger, than the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings trilogy, if done correctly. But then the main thing that I want to tee it against, which this is actually our final section I want to talk through, okay? Could this be bigger, this Harry Potter show on HBO? Could this be the next biggest thing to Game of Thrones? I think the short answer is yes. I think it could be, and And I think there's a lot going for it. Let me read a few stats real quickly because I wanted to just hit this. So like I was thinking through like how do you kind of gauge this? How can you know if it's going to be bigger than Game of Thrones? And there's a few obvious points. The potential audience size. Listen to this. The Harry Potter books have sold over 600 million books.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Game of Thrones, the books for Game of Thrones have sold 90 million. All right. And then you have the movies, which collectively have made $7.7 billion over their lifespan.
Yeah.
7.7 billion. All right. Compared to like, and there's not really a number amount for the Game of Thrones, but it was one of the highest viewed shows on HBO ever.
Yeah.
And so there was consistently an average of around 10 million viewers watching an episode of Game of Thrones. Okay.
Yeah.
So those are kind of like a few key points to think through. In my mind, I'm surprised that the Harry Potter movies did not hit 10 billion. You know what I mean? Especially since there's 8 movies. That's beside the point. I think just the book sales and just the diversity of age for audience size and just what I hear on the streets, you know, Harry Potter its audience is pretty big.
I would 100% agree with you. And I do think this will probably either be as big or bigger than Game of Thrones.
I think this is going to be much bigger than Game of Thrones.
There is one caveat though.
Okay.
And I was pretty young, I feel like, when Game of Thrones was coming out. And I jumped on board season 7 and then 8. So the last 2 seasons.
You were late. I jumped on season 5.
Yeah, I jumped on late, and then so I binged all up to 7. Then I watched with people 7 and 8. And I remember I was working at Lowe's at the time, and I had a couple managers that Lowe's is friendly to, you know, veterans, and like these old military guys would like working at Lowe's because of the type of job that it is, you know, hard construction worker veteran guys.
Sure.
And every Sunday they would be like, yeah, we got to get out of work in time to go watch our Game of Thrones. And they're talking about the next drama thing. Jon Snow's the actual king. And these hardcore veteran guys that are in their 50s
are
and 60s
wrapped up into the story.
Are wrapped up in the drama. But yet I don't see them being like, yeah, you know, Ron and Hermione, Ron smooched Hermione.
Yeah, no. Not the same crowd, right?
Not the same crowd. Even though I think that Harry Potter has a bigger crowd, it's not older men can enjoy Game of Thrones. They're not going to enjoy this.
Well, it's questionable, right? Because it just depends on the quality of storytelling. Now, I will say one thing that they don't have going for them is the theories and the excitement to see what happens next that Game of Thrones had. All right. Yeah. Because at the end of the day,
we know what's going to happen.
We may not know a new story beat, like something where they're subverting the expectation, diverting from the book a little to tell a new story beat. At the end of the day, we know what happens in Harry Potter. You know what I mean? We not only have the books, we have movies that were made about the books, you know? So you don't even have to be a book viewer to know that, you know, Sirius Black escapes from Azkaban. You know what I mean? Like,
that's going to be cool. Show us that. I hope they show us that.
I'm just saying, like, we know the beats to the story, and so we're going to be missing that excitement for what's going to happen next, you know, which Game of Thrones had such a monopoly on. And so although I think the audience has the ability to make this a much bigger show, will we experience as much excitement from the show that we did from Game of Thrones? I'm going to say it's going to be thrilling. It's going to be fun. I think it could be enjoyable as long as they don't screw it up. I don't think it's going to be as exciting as Game of Thrones.
No.
Right?
I mean, if you look at shows over the years, like I'm talking about like 80s, 90s, even before that, the really popular shows like Lost and I'm losing some that I had in there, was they had those, somebody who shot Steve, and then you have to wait till the next week to find out who shot Steve. You know, because you've read the books, you know, because you've seen the movies. But
yes.
So I would agree. The more popular shows have those things that we can't have in this.
The other thing is kind of like, what's the life of this show after it is finished?
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm 40 years old, you know what I mean? And the show's wrapped, they told the story. It's been 10 years, more than that for the actors, right? Because of like production and everything. It's been 10 years. The show is done. We have a brand new body of work for Harry Potter. And it's not just the Daniel Radcliffe movies. Now we have this HBO series that potentially might be loved more than the movies are. What's the life of that? And I think it's pretty high, because the rewatchability that people have for those Harry Potter movies, it's like people never stopped watching them. They know what's going to happen. People, like, it's like the Lord of the Rings thing. It's like every year they do their marathon.
It feels like like a Christmas movie that you come back to every year. You watch.
But the question is, will people do their marathon of Harry Potter series of a show? Right.
I mean, 8 seasons, 7 seasons. Yeah, that's hard to do because it's a lot to binge. But
it's a lot to binge. But will people love it enough and do the same thing that they've done for the movies, or will they just be like, good show? I'm gonna keep watching the older movies though.
You're convincing me that people aren't gonna. It's not going to be as big as we've been claiming this whole time. Because do people watch Game of Thrones again? Do people go back and binge the whole show?
Well, I do. I usually do.
You do and I do, but I mean, that's people don't binge shows over and over again unless it's something like The Sopranos. And so,
actually, but that's a case where people do binge shows.
Yeah, or like The Office.
They have The Office. The Office. Okay, could this hit some kind of Office level nostalgia that people put on as they're going to bed? You know what I mean? People put on and watch throughout the entire holiday season. Like, what is it? Is this going to replace and just have more streaming hours because there's a lot more screen time than the older movies? Maybe. Like, are the older movies viewership just gonna fall off, and then this is just gonna have lastability after the show's done and rolled out? Are they just people going to keep watching them?
I definitely think that it has to hit something. And because we're talking about 10 years and like 10 years plus 2 at this point, so 12 years from now, I definitely think it's going to have to, that's a long time into the future. So how are we going to be even consuming content then? It's like, if you think about The Office was popular when it was on TV. But the actors and people that were part of The Office have openly said it was popular, but it got so much more popular, got way bigger when it started going to streaming service and people could binge it.
Netflix for a long time.
Yes,
for a long time.
It got a new life after the show was done that our generation sees now. And is there going to be something like that in the future? How are we going to consume content like this in 12 plus years? Is there going to be a new thing that we're watching the Harry Potter show on, and that's what ultimately it comes down to? Because it could be a great show, but if streaming dies and this show dies with streaming, then it's not the show's fault. It's streaming and how we consume content.
Streaming, it's hard to say streaming's going to die, because you also have to consider.
I don't think so either, but I mean, this is the future we're talking about.
Right.
The world, I mean, anything could happen. I mean,
here's
we can be watching it during the zombie apocalypse that's happening in 8 years.
Okay. assuming there's not going to be a zombie apocalypse.
I mean,
the good thing that's a little bit hopeful for people in this niche of telling stories through cinema, right, is the fact that across all time of human beings, people love stories. You know what I mean? They love to be told a good story. Cinema has reached the peak of telling a story through audio, video, and it looks as realistic as it can get. Like we now have animation and cameras and everything that is the highest form of technology. When you're watching something on screen, it looks as real as if the person's sitting next to you. You know what I mean? So we've reached the top of reality in telling stories using all of the senses. The only thing, what, you got smell-o-vision? I don't think smell-o-vision's ever going to take off. But outside of that, it's like we might be sitting here for a long time, because what else you can do, like the VR experience, right?
Yeah.
But honestly, at the end of the day, you're hanging out with your family or your friends. Do you all want to just go to a VR world to watch your movie? Or do you just want to pop it on a screen like a box or a wall, you know what I mean? And just watch your show next to you. You know what I mean? I think people like the window into another world. And I think people are going to enjoy the VR experience in the gaming realm, but because that's when it's more engrossing, it's interactive. But if you're just being told a story, engrossing, like it's more bringing you into that realm, because you're going to engage with it, right? In the gaming sense. But if you're just going to be told a story and you're just going to observe, to enjoy and listen to and see this story take place, I don't think people want to be in a VR world to do that, you know?
Yeah, I think
I think
the future.
I think streaming, I don't know what the future of streaming is going to look like, but at the end of the day, whatever the future is, it's going to be, how do people play this window into this story? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's what it's going to be at the end of the day. It could be like you just have a hologram that pops up and there's your window. I mean, who knows what it's going to look like? But I don't think shows like this necessarily die when streaming dies. And at the same time, the internet is opening up a new universe in a lot of ways. Yeah. And so it's like streaming is just pulling video off the internet. So I don't think that's going away anytime soon, you know? So to answer the question, I wanted to point out this one other thing. The budget, they said it's probably going to be on par, if not bigger than the creators basically alluded to this. It's going to be on par, if not bigger than the budget they saw for House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon was spending about $20 million an episode, right? And they spent over $100 million in marketing. So we're talking well over $200 million
a lot,
to market and create like a season for House of the Dragon. So this is going to be on par, if not a bit larger than that budget-wise. So could this be the next biggest thing to Game of Thrones? I think it's going to have everything needed to be bigger than Game of Thrones. But I think we made a good point. The excitement level, right? And I also think it has a good chance of replacing the old movies and people watching this like after it's done. I think it has the lifespan of this is a long time past the series is done. But I think there's going to be a level of excitement that's missing, that we always are missing when we're telling a story that the majority of the population already knows. Now, remember, people who read the books of Game of Thrones knew what was going to happen until we got to the part of the show where there wasn't any books left for it. But then everybody disliked it anyway. Like, people don't like the end of the Game of Thrones because they're like, this doesn't feel like the same thing.
I'm still going to be salty about that. I had moments that, I didn't like about Game of Thrones, but I think it was what they gave us. if you don't like the thing they served you, then get out of the restaurant.
No,
if you don't like what they're
no.
serving on the menu, then
I
get out of the
disagree with
restaurant.
this. I disagree with this point because they were serving you one thing that was really good and tasty for a long time. And then they decided to switch it up on you and deliver you something to your table that you didn't order. Like, that's what Game of Thrones did.
I know most people enjoy a good steak, but some people enjoy a little bit of meatloaf. Meatloaf is good sometimes. Even though it's not steak, I'll enjoy a meatloaf once in a while.
Look, I'll say this. The end of Game of Thrones is a lot better than like Rings of Power. All right?
Yeah.
The end of Game of Thrones is a lot better than the whole Rings of Power show. However, it is not up to standard to what like the first 6 seasons delivered to us, you know? Seasons 7 and 8 really fell flat compared to what 6 seasons before that gave to us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what was disappointing. It was disappointing. That's why there's so much hate around it. Disappointment. So Harry Potter, don't disappoint us now.
Mm-mm.
And you might have the ability to maybe not be as exciting as Game of Thrones was for a large amount of the population week to week. But I think you'll see just as much love and just as much attention and just as much joy and enthusiasm around the show, and potentially a lot bigger of an audience than Game of Thrones. So let me know down in the comments, or if you're listening to audio only, you can review you can review it on the audio platforms, but you should also check out our YouTube channel so that you can interact with us, right? Go to our YouTube channel, Wiseworks Studio on YouTube, and you can leave comments on our videos and talk to us about your thoughts if you're on audio or if you're here on YouTube already. Let us know what you guys are thinking. That's all I got. That's all I got.
I guess all I got too, except for long live the true king of the North, Jon Snow. I don't know. Have a good night. Have a good day.
All right, we'll see you, everybody. Bye-bye.